Okay. Okay, thank you everybody for joining the call. Tonight we're lucky enough to have Dr. Idris Latara with us tonight. He is somebody who's had a keen interest in Amigas and how they affect his treatment plans, and he came across Enzino and saw a really strong point of difference and has been getting some really good results. And tonight he's going to share his thoughts on fertility and pregnancy and newborns and I suppose children, and you know, how important he feels Amigas are for all of those things. So Idris, thanks so much for taking the time, and looking forward to learning some of your experiences with this product.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate that. And a very warm welcome to everyone. Salam alaikum. Peace and blessings to all of you that's taking your Wednesday evening out to join us. I know there's not a lot of other options at the moment, but for those in Melbourne, hopefully soon we'll be out of lockdown and we can start to return to normal life. But like Adam was saying, I was introduced to this product when, in fact, I was actually seeking for this very thing. I've been a keen lover of Amigas for a long time, and you know, this landed on my door, so to speak, and I quickly kind of decided, yep, this is going to be a product that I'll use clinically, and I've been using it ever since in the clinic, and we've had some really amazing benefits from it. So if I could, Adam, get please the host rights so that I can set up my my presentation.
Absolutely. That should be all good now.
Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, and just bear with us a second as we get this up and running. Just confirming, Adam, you can see that now?
Yep, looks good.
Excellent. Okay, well, yes, I'm Dr. Idris Latara, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm a naturopath. And for those of you who don't know what naturopaths are, we are really concerned with people's health and finding the root cause of what that health problem is. We really like to practice preventative medicine. And, you know, I've been in the industry for about 15 years. I am also a formulation scientist, so I'm a bit of a chemistry geek and a geek when it comes to formulas. And
guys, you should buy the comment. She's not using back up.
If you could mute yourself, that would be great. Thank you. So tonight we're going to be talking about something that's very close and dear to my heart, and that's fertility, pregnancy, and newborn health. Close to my heart because my wife is currently 21 weeks pregnant, and we are very delighted and excited. It's our first baby, so I can't wait to be a daddy. And you know, it's been a great journey so far. And on the other side of things, from a clinical point of view, I've helped a lot of fertility patients over the years. I've also helped a lot of people who are pregnant, and of course, lots of children. The clinic is very busy, probably very different to a lot of naturopaths, where I really get everyone from the very elderly right through to newborns. So we're going to talk tonight about how we can improve the health of and chances of fertility. We're going to be looking at pregnancy and newborn health and using omega-3 lipids and its benefits. So without further ado, we all want to feel good and stay fit and be healthy. Now, it's obviously something which has become a very real problem for a lot of people now. You know, during the last really couple of years since we've been facing this pandemic with coronavirus, people have become a lot more self-aware and more aware of their own health, which I think in some respects is a good thing. They've become more aware of saying, look, I'm going to try and improve my quality of health, and I'm going to try and make sure that I'm, you know, here for many years, and not only here for many years, but a healthy version of themselves. And one of the fundamental principles that all healthcare providers are taught, in fact, you might have heard of the Hippocratic Oath before, This is an oath that that doctors and physicians take when they become a doctor. And this oath is basically based on the principles of Hippocrates, who was essentially the father of modern medicine. He lived a long time ago, about 460 years before the time of Jesus. And one of his famous quotes was, "Let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food." And in fact, one of the interesting things that Hippocrates taught was, if you were sick, the first thing you should do is stop and think about, can I treat this health problem right now with food? Can I change the food that I'm eating? Can I add something? Can I subtract something? And if you're unable to treat yourself with the food that's in front of you or that you feed yourself, then it's time to go and seek a professional's help. And as I said, this is like a long time ago. This is over 2,000 years ago. So this is very much a true message today. So we're going to be looking particularly at, first off, fertility. Now, one of the things I wanted to start off by talking about is that with fertility, for a very long time, women were the one who copped the blame. You know, oh, she's got poor quality eggs, or she's got this, or she's got that. But in fact, all the current studies show that 55 to 60% of infertility conditions are male related, which means that it's essentially something that's coming from sperm ultimately. And we see this a lot, particularly me in my clinic. Most of my infertility cases that I treat are male related. And, you know, this is obviously becoming a big concern. We could probably talk about this topic for hours in terms of the changes and the problems that current society is facing. I really do believe that we're all experiencing a little bit of a hormonal crisis. You've got men that are developing way too much estrogen, and you've got women that are developing way too much testosterone. And obviously things should be the other way around. But let's look at what omega-3s can do to help and support fertility health. First of all, one of the really interesting, cool things it does is it helps to stimulate nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide is a mediator. Of course, it does a lot of things in the body. It's a signaling molecule. One of the important things that it does is supply blood flow. And where healthy blood goes, health will follow. So when we look at fertility issues, particularly from a male perspective, but it also does support female fertility, omega-3s help to allow the body to naturally produce more nitric oxide, which then will improve testicular and penile blood flow. Now, the good side effects of that are, number one, hopefully a better libido and sex drive. And then secondly, better erections, better erection quality, because obviously you can't make a baby if you're not having good erections, as it stands to reason. Next, one of the interesting things that omega-3 does is it acts as an antioxidant. A lot of people don't think of omegas like this, but they are actually in the classification as an antioxidant. One of their very many titles or umbrellas that they can kind of sit under. As an antioxidant, one of the things that omega-3s do is it helps to improve seminal fluid volume. Now, when you increase the volume of seminal fluid, you're going to be enhancing the production of sperm. So you're going to have an increased sperm count. You're going to increase sperm motility, and you're also going to increase sperm morphology. And these are generally one of the main problems that men encounter today when they have infertility problems. A couple will come into my clinic and they'll say, listen, my husband's had some semen analysis. He has a low sperm count, or he has low sperm morphology or something like that. One of the more technical problems, which unfortunately most GPs and most fertility clinics aren't really aware of or don't really investigate, is something known as DNA fragmentation. And this is essentially where components of the DNA are missing from the sperm. So it stands to reason that you can't fall pregnant if you have sperm that's missing fundamental DNA, or that DNA is fragmented. So one of the interesting things that we found in a study going back to 2012 is that omega-3s help to reduce sperm DNA fragmentation and obviously likewise help to repair that fragmentation that occurs. Now, turning over to the other half of the equation, obviously we want to look at the fertility health benefits for women. So one of the important things that we've known about omega-3s for a long time is that they help to decrease endometriosis. They also can help with polycystic ovarian syndrome, pelvic infections, etc. We also know that they definitely, omega-3s help to improve the egg. They help to not only supply better production, but better egg quality with the eggs that the female is producing. We also know that just by taking omega-3 as a supplement before pregnancy or conception, you know, it's going to help with natural conception just on its own, because it aids with the egg fertilization. And that's, you know, that topic just right there. We could spend hours just discussing the technicality of it, but I wanted to keep it nice and simple tonight. And needless to say that it's a very important part of the whole process. So we've talked about the sperm, but we're also looking at the fertilization of that sperm to the egg and the health benefits that are presented there. Naturally, or natural conception, of course, is the goal, but when that doesn't happen, we've seen that, you know, fortunately there are IVF clinics and fertility specialists that all agree, based on the studies, that there is improved ratios of embryo implantation with IVF treatments. And IVF, if you've known someone that's gone through this, or maybe you have yourself, it's a very expensive, highly stressful, very difficult operation. I've seen some patients that have had 5 or 6 or 7 IVF treatments before. And just by simply adding omega-3, it's going to increase the likelihood of, you know, the embryo implantation. Now, another thing that I thought I'd add on here, because I understand that the modern woman today is very much different to the generations before her. One of the things that's changed is that women are a lot more independent or career driven. And so, you know, childbirth is not necessarily something that's on their immediate list. And so they tend to put it off for some time. Maybe they're waiting to find the right guy. Maybe they're ready to, you know, want their career to settle down, make some money, whatever it is. And so we've got a lot of women who get a little bit later in life than traditionally, you know, used to happen. And they're trying for pregnancy. So 2 things I thought that I'd add here is, number one, omega-3 helps to decrease FSH, which is the follicle stimulating hormone. Now, that's a way that physicians and practitioners gauge how close someone is to entering into menopause. So essentially, when we decrease FSH, we're going to decrease menopause, or that menopausal phase in women. So that's an important and very interesting finding. And then, of course, the next one, as a side effect of that, we're going to obviously see that the woman's going to be able to prolong her maternal lifespan, meaning that her age, or her conception age, and her maternal lifespan is increased, and generally, you know, healthier than she might have been before. So if a woman's coming up to her late 30s or early 40s, just by taking omega-3s can really support, you know, decreasing the likelihood of entering into menopause or early menopause, and prolonging that maternal lifespan. Now, a question that you might have is, how long do I take this for? Well, a very general rule is that sperm, very similar to eggs, takes approximately 90 days to produce. So the sperm that you ejaculate tonight, or the eggs that a woman is producing right now, has generally taken about, you know, 3 months to produce. Now, when I treat, for example, male infertility, sometimes giving them ingredients like omegas, zinc, selenium, sometimes they very quickly notice a change in their seminal fluid. They might even tell me within the first week, they're like, wow, gosh, you know, like I've produced a lot more sperm than normal. But in reality, that's part of the seminal fluid. We want a good 3 months to allow for the healthiest sperm as possible. So whether it's omega-3 or whether it's other nutritional supplements that you're taking, you want to start this process a good 3 months at least before you're wanting to try for conception. So that is our first stage, looking at fertility. Now let's go on to the next part of tonight's talk, which is looking at pregnancy itself. So pregnancy, of course, is a beautiful thing. Of course, there's lots of stress and there are some dangers that come along with it. But, you know, in the modern world, we have so much sophisticated technology and medical understanding that pregnancies these days are really generally, hopefully, a time of great joy. And there is so much that we can do to support healthy pregnancies and, of course, producing a healthy baby. Now, folic acid or folate, which is technically a vitamin B9, is generally considered the most important ingredient that a woman needs to start taking a good 3 months before pregnancy or conception, and then obviously throughout her pregnancy. It's one of the most documented, you know, nutritional ingredients, and I think every single pregnancy supplement in the world will have high doses of folate or folic acid. Now, I just wanted to pause on that note for a second, and just as a little handy hint for the audience tonight, one of the most important things that I find in clinic is, and it might even depend a little bit upon ethnically where you're from, but you might want to consider at this stage, if you were pregnant, is to look at investigating whether you have a gene mutation known as MTHFR. The reason I say that is because, although we're off topic slightly, because we're talking about folic acid and folate, although it's the most important nutrient that, you know, women need during pregnancy, it is highly dangerous and can be also actually considered a poison if you happen to have the MTHFR gene mutation. I test for this in my clinic. I see it a lot, in which case we would need to give you a different type of folate and folic acid, because the synthetic version, which is in products like Elevate and most over-the-counter supplements, contain that synthetic version of folate or folic acid. So apart from that though, omega-3 is really considered, probably after folate, the second most important nutritional ingredient that's needed during pregnancy. Now, some of the things that it can help you with, number one, is it assists with the length of gestation. It reduces the risk of preterm birth, and also is very important with with producing a healthy birth weight and healthy baby. A really important thing during pregnancy, as many of you mums out there would know, is regulating your blood pressure is an important and delicate matter sometimes. And one of the great benefits of omega-3 is it will do that. It helps to regulate blood pressure. It's really great for improving blood clotting and blood clotting issues. And then a really interesting things here are some of the great things that omega-3s do for pregnant women. In fact, all of us, but great for supporting nerve transmission, which is quite important, particularly in the time of labor. Very good at reducing inflammation. As you know, during pregnancy, we're very, very limited with herbal medicine that we can give. We're very limited with even pharmaceutical medicine that can be given. So if there are any pre-existing inflammatory problems or they come as a result of pregnancy, it's a really good idea to be taking omega-3 for that. Also, allergies, hay fever, eczema, these sorts of things can pop up out of nowhere during pregnancy, even if you've never had it before. So omega-3s can help to prevent that. Another two important parts of the body, in fact, probably two of the main important parts, is they're going to help with kidney health as well as gut health. Super, super important. Now, for those of you that don't know this, and you'll probably hear me say this a couple of times tonight so it sinks in, the human body does not produce omega-3. I'll say that again, the human body does not produce omega-3. So we need it from our nutrition, we need it from food, and often, you know, we really need to rely on a good quality supplement of omega-3. So obviously one of the issues is if you're not getting many omega-3s in general, then you're in a real disadvantage, because during pregnancy, just by everything that's happening, you know, your body will naturally deplete the omega lipids that are in your body, and particularly, but not limited to, DHA, because it supports so much of the baby's development. So if you've got very little percentage of omegas in your body in the first place, and you're, you know, the your body is basically sucking those omegas out to pass them through the placenta so they can help the baby's formation, then you're going to be in a bit of a pickle. Moving along, I thought this was a really cool one. Lots of women would like to read this. Omega-3s really help support skin elasticity and skin health in general. But one of the great side effects of this is it's going to help to prevent stretch marks. Another thing that's important is it's going to help to reduce the risk of vaginal tearing, and of course, reduce the risk of an episiotomy. Episiotomy is a procedure which doctors need to perform sometimes to cut just below in order to provide more surface area and stretching required for childbirth. It's it's a very unpleasant thing to have done, and omega-3s are known and studied to really help to prevent the need for episiotomies and vaginal tearing in general. Next, we've got premature labor. There are some studies showing that just by taking omega-3, they help to prevent that premature labor. And then a very important function here, in fact, I wish we had more time to discuss this, is omega-3s are so important for mood health, neurotransmitter health. We see amazing evidence that they support perinatal and postnatal depression, which sadly, affects a lot of mums out there. So we've done our pregnancy stint. Now let's look over to our next section, which is newborn health. And this is, of course, this is what we're all looking forward to, is having a very healthy, adorable, cute little baby. After mother's breast milk, which I can't stress enough, the importance of breast milk, it really is the most important thing you can give your child. In fact, a good 2 years or 24 months of breast milk is really considered the gold standard. If you can do that, that's fantastic. I know there are some situations where you can't. But after mother's breast milk, omega-3, in my opinion, would be the next most important ingredient that's needed for baby's development. Very, very critical building blocks for so many things. Important for baby's heart, important for baby's brain, important for the retina and eye health, very important for cognitive function, neurotransmitter production. It's going to help with the development and the health of joints and all that's involved in joints, ligaments and collagen and things like this. Very important with skin production, hair production, teeth when they end up being formed, and also very important for the nervous system. Now, I recommend that breastfeeding mothers continue to take omega-3s during their, while they're breastfeeding. Super important because they're able to supply such a very important healthy breast milk for baby. Further to that, it's very important that you include the omega-3 into the baby's diet at about the 6-month time. And you can be really creative with that. You can add it to breast milk that's been expressed. You can add it to mixture or any other liquid, really. And when baby starts having some solids, it's very easy to add it into things like maybe some mushed up veggies or things like that. Moving on, we see a big correlation. In fact, I just came across this recently, a big correlation between reducing the risk of childhood obesity. And I might add to that metabolic problems, which sadly is becoming a bigger problem each year with young kids. Another important one is there is a strong link with the risks of ADHD and then all developmental issues and I guess behavioral issues. The omega-3s are so important with that. Strongly linked with brain development, mental health, memory, and then the last one you might giggle at, but it's true, intelligence. A Japanese university found a very strong correlation with the amount of omegas in a child's brain compared with their intelligence. Children that are breastfed, or actually, let's go back. Children that are supplemented with omega-3s during their pregnancy, that are given during breastfeeding and early, during their infancy, show incredible results when it comes to intelligence, memory, retention, the way they perform on aptitude tests. So if you want a smart kid, give them some omega-3s. And then finally, we see a very big link here with reducing the risks of childhood eczema, asthma, hay fever, and allergies. And, you know, sadly, this is something that has kept me very busy over the years. We have a lot of little kids that might be a couple of months old to 1 or 2 that develop some really terrible allergy symptoms. And often it can be symptom free, but it'd be much better to prevent it by giving them omega-3s because we see that their immune modulating abilities help to reduce those risks. So now that we've gone through those 3 stages there, I wanted to talk a little bit more about omega-3s and you know, the importance of them. One of the things that I wanted to introduce to you is something called the cell membrane. Now, it's important because all of us tonight have over 100,000 trillion cell membranes. We have over 100,000 trillion membranes, I should say cells in our body. Now, these cells have, you know, there's a variety of cells. There's maybe thousands of them. Skin cells, nerve cells, muscle cells, cells in our eyes, and, you know, the list could go on forever. Obviously, we're all familiar with the red blood cells and the white blood cells, but we have, as I said, you know, thousands of cells, and all these cells look a little different. So, you know, on the outside, they basically appear a little bit different. They might have some slightly different shapes, but there is one thing that they all have in common. And the thing they have in common is called a cell membrane. Now, the cell membrane is essentially the bodyguard of the cell. And I want to go through quickly and explain what it does, because it's going to be very important a little later tonight when we discuss some test results. So the first thing the cell membrane does is it protects. Now, what does it protect against? Well, it protects against a lot. You see, if I can just kind of digress a little bit and talk a little bit on topic with, you know, Corona and everything that we're struggling with in the world right now, you will not, I repeat, you will not contract the virus if it does not penetrate your cell membrane, because that's essentially the role of the cell membrane. Is it's protecting against invaders like toxins and waste and viruses. Okay, so that's why sometimes, and you might be puzzled, I'm sure that you've all had experiences with someone that's had coronavirus. I've heard of plenty of situations where there'll be a family, say, of 5 or 6 people, and 3 of their household members get COVID, and then the other 3 don't. And then you're walking around scratching your head thinking, how's that possible? Well, it actually comes down to this very neat little structure in the body, call it the cell membrane. Its role is to protect against these invasions. And corona virus, it's called corona because it comes from the word crown. The coronavirus has, like all viruses, these little spikes, and they basically try and force their way into the cell. If that doesn't happen, you don't get the virus, regardless of the virus that we're talking about. So, so that protection of the cell membrane is obviously super important in today's world. The next thing it does is absorb. It absorbs the things that it wants to absorb and needs to, whether that be vitamins, minerals, and all this good stuff that's needed for the cell to do its job. And then, like I want you to kind of think of these cell membranes like little factories. So they absorb the nutrition they need, and then they produce waste and pollution like all little factories. So the other role of the cell membrane is to excrete that waste and toxins and that pollution that it's created. So that's basically the 3 roles of the cell membrane. Now, why is this important? Well, we want to have a look at the role here. So, you know, as I said, we're a mass of, you know, 100,000 trillion cells. And if these cells aren't functioning properly, you've got some serious issues. So on the left here, we can see reduced cell function. This is when the cell is hard, it's rigid, there's not a good healthy fluidity about the cell. So the nutrients are not going to be absorbed well. And then even more important, the waste that it produces is not going to be able to be excreted well. So we've got a very sick looking cell here. And in turn, if that's you, you're going to be a sick person. On the other hand, a normal functioning cell that's soft, flexible, and has a good cell membrane fluidity we're going to notice that the nutrients are absorbed really easily. And then, of course, all of that waste and pollution and stuff and toxins are going to likewise be excreted really easily. Now, this has been one of the fundamental secrets to health that, scientists and physicians have been understanding for some time. But it's been very difficult to understand how to achieve this. How do you achieve a healthy cell membrane function? So we're going to look at that tonight. One of the ways that we do that is by measuring your omega-6 to omega-3 balance. Now, we're going to look at some numbers, and I hope this is not going to be boring for you, but hopefully you'll be enlightened by how fascinating this is. We all of us tonight, everyone in the world, we want you to be 3 to 1. That's the ratio that we want of omega-6 to omega-3. Sadly, most of us are nowhere near that. Most of us are 15 to 1 or worse. And even sadder than that is most children, when we test them, have some of the worst results that we've ever seen, having, a ratio of 25 to 1. Now, we have a really sophisticated test that we're able to offer. I love performing this in the clinic because it's just such a breakthrough in not only, pathology, but it's such a visually a very important thing for me to show my patients. So we're going to look now at this test, by the way, recently, This test, by the way, is something that's performed in Norway, and this company is called Vidus Analytical Services. You can see that they're partnered with some very prestigious, institutions around the world: Harvard, Cambridge, King's College, London, etc. And as to date, we've done well over 750,000 of these tests. And I'm going to show you some of these tests now. So this is a test of an individual here. I just wanted to show you what a test result looks like. So I hope you can see my cursor. I think you can. This is basically the first page of your results. And, you can see straight away here that this person is not in a very good position. They're in an unbalanced state. And you can see here that their omega-6 to 3 ratio is 11.9 to 1. So let me kind of show that to you in another way. In fact, sorry, I'll just go back here. Let me explain this to you in another way. I want you to imagine that omega-6 is the fire and omega-3 is the water. So the 6 that we call the fire, that's causing inflammatory mediators in our body, inflammation. Now that sometimes can cause pain, but more importantly, it can cause other things like cancer and stuff like this. On the other hand, we've got omega-3, and that's the water. That's the anti-inflammatories. That's putting out the fire. That's helping to gobble up nasty cells and reducing inflammatory effects on the body. Now, we talked a little bit before about the cell membrane wall. Well, I'm going to show you the result of an individual just the other day. This was a guy who's in his early 50s, and you can see here that this person actually, by the way, out of interest, has been in the health industry for many, many years. It's not me, by the way. They've been in the health industry for many, many years. They're actually a vegetarian, and on top of that, they have a company where they supply, really high quality health supplements to people around Australia and educate them about health. So this person is particularly, particularly involved in the industry and has been for some time. Yet you can see that they are in a very, very bad state. Their cell membrane wall is 22.5 to 1. So this person's going to have very rigid cell membrane. They're going to have very difficult fluidity in terms of protecting themselves against viruses and invaders, allowing for absorption of nutrients and, the cell to detoxify. Now, why is this important with pregnancy? Well, think about it. The egg is a cell. The sperm is a cell. All these building blocks that make up all these different parts and facets of us, it comes right down to the single two important parts of making a baby, which is the sperm and the egg. So if your cell membrane fluidity is bad, it's going to compromise your opportunity to make a baby. Now, I wanted to show you, just to kind of show you another example of a result. This, as you can see here, is a 9-year-old female. When I saw these results, I was just flabbergasted. We have a very, very unbalanced state here. In fact, we're going to have a look at this in a little bit more detail, just to give you an idea of what this result can show, or what this test shows us. So first of all, as we said before, the omega 6:3 balance, we can see here that they're very much in the red, 21.3 to 1. So that's 21 parts of fire compared to 1 part of water. And like I said, for a 9-year-old little girl, that's a very, very sad result. Their protection value, this is essentially like a bit of an algorithm. It looks at all your results and spits out a percentage. And so you can see that this person has 0.0% protection for their health. Next, we've got the amount of omega-3 that this little girl has in her body. Just a staggering 2.2%, which is nothing. We really need to be 8% or better. So, you know, this little girl here is not really getting, and probably never has had, sufficient levels of omega given to her as a food source or anything else. Mental strength, this is an interesting one here. This is looking at how the omegas are supporting mental health. And when I say mental health, that includes things like memory and retention, cognitive function, not just mood and problems like that. Very bad result, 4.4 to 1, terrible result there. Next, we've got, again, 9-year-old girl, little girl, 9 years old. Her cell membrane fluidity is 17.8 to 1. Absolutely shocking. So this little girl is going to be in, again, a very compromised health state. And then finally, we can see, we'll go to the next screen, actually, we can see here the breakdown of her lipids. So I just wanted to draw your attention down here. This tells us exactly how much omegas she really needs and how bad her situation is. She's deficient of 89% of EPA, which is the main, this is one of the main anti-inflammatory mechanisms that omega-3s offer. DHA here, she's negative 64%. This is very much needed for her cognitive, her brain development, her memory, her retention, and stuff like this. So as we can see here, just unfortunately, really terrible results. So when we test people in the clinic and really around the world, unfortunately, the balance rate is just terrible. In Australia, 98% of people are out of balance. And in fact, in my personal clinic, I'd say 100%. I've never had anyone I've tested personally who has been in a balanced state. You know, that's a really sad thing. So can we fix this problem? Well, absolutely we can. Now, we've been talking about omega-3s tonight. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is oils ain't oils. It's very true. And I want to kind of give you a little bit of a scenario. I want you to close your eyes and imagine this for a moment. Imagine I give you a banana or an apple, and you peel the banana open and you take a slice of the apple and you leave it there for, say, let's say 2 hours, and you come back to it later. What's it going to look like? Well, you know what it's going to look like. It's going to be brown, and that's called oxidation, rust, essentially. Well, like all things, omegas rust and they oxidize very quickly. In fact, krill oil, which is one of the favorites out there in the world, it's one of the more expensive omega supplements, oxidizes the fastest. In fact, this number here, 5 hours after production, is actually not really that accurate, I'd say. From my research, krill oil can oxidize anywhere between 1 to 3 hours. So by the time it's been put into a capsule, shipped overseas, it's been sitting on a pharmacy shelf for who knows how long, and you eventually go and open that bottle and start taking those capsules, the likelihood is that you're having a krill oil that's oxidized, rancid, or is semi-toxic. Next, we've got your typical fish oils, 9 hours, very, very short shelf life. And then, of course, cod liver is a little bit longer at 15 hours there. So the stability, the freshness, the potency of fish oil is very important. And as we can see here, one of the problems we have is how do we reduce the risk of our oil oxidizing, you know, essentially rusting. The other thing that I think is, you know, common sense is, where is your oil coming from? Most companies, in fact, probably 99% of companies won't tell you. Even some of the really top tier practitioner brands out there don't tell you exactly where the fish oil is from. If it's from the oceanic waters, for example, Thailand, China, you're going to be concerned about contamination. You're going to be worried about toxicity, mercury levels, and things like that. And so these, again, are some of the things that we need to concern ourselves with. So we have a wonderful product here, which I've chosen to use exclusively in the clinic as my Amiga formula that I give to my patients. And that's because it ticks all the boxes that I've been looking for in my 15 years of clinical practice. Number one, where is the fish from? It's from Norway. My mum's Norwegian, and not to play favorites or anything, but if you ever, go and do yourself a favor and Google photos of Norway. It's one of the most beautiful, pristine parts of the world. More importantly, the water that surrounds Norway is some of the coldest and cleanest in the world. It has high levels of phytoplankton, so it's got great nutrition for the fish to be happy. And this is where this fish oil comes from. It's selectively wild caught, which is very important. It's wild Norwegian fish oil. And in addition to that, another really cool thing is that we're using the small fish. Small fish have less likelihood to have things like mercury, heavy metals, and toxins because they're smaller and they're further down the food chain. So when we look at big fish, for example, like tuna, which is a massive fish, it's going to have more possibility of contamination. Now, the other really cool thing about this product here is that it's not really just a fish oil. In fact, we don't even call it that. It's called balance oil because it's a balanced formula between fish oil and polyphenols from olive. And before, when we were talking about how oils can stay fresh and how they oxidize and rust, well, the beautiful thing with this product is that the polyphenols are protecting the fish oil from rancidity. So this oil is not only well preserved and protected and fresh, but obviously the polyphenols, which are antioxidants, by the way, they're going to provide a number of other great health benefits to your body. The other really cool thing about this is there's vitamin D and vitamin E in this formula. The other really cool thing about it is that it is dosage by weight. Now, I can't tell you how excited I am that it's dosage by weight. And I kind of want to give you a bit of a mental picture here for a while. Think of people you have known. I'm sure everyone in your family at some point has bought Amiga fish oils. Put your hand up. I'm sure you've done it yourself. And you go home and you've got this massive big tub of these strange smelling massive capsules and you take them. Now, in 15 years of being a naturopath, I've given Amigas to a lot of people, and it's not until I've started using this particular brand that I've had anyone say anything, anything, meaning that people don't feel anything. They take these other fish oils and they don't feel a thing. And it's partly because they're not taking the right dose. Technically, if they were going to take the correct dose, they'd probably be taking, if they're taking capsules, they'd probably need to have something like 6 or 7 capsules a day. And, that's a lot of fish oil capsules. So this is awesome because right from early age of 6 months, right through to the elderly, we always give the dose based on someone's weight. It's a liquid formula, it's halal certified. And then the other really cool thing about this is that, you've got a number of fruit-based flavors. It's actually a very pleasant tasting formula. It doesn't taste anything like fish. In fact, to be really honest, it reminds me of like a salad dressing. So I often tell people that it's very easy to consume. You can either drink it straight with your dinner, preferably is the best time to take it, or you can also put it on top of salads. You can add it to smoothies and things like that. Next, we have a really great innovative product, which is a water-soluble omega-3 formula. So this water-soluble product is essentially, it dissolves in water. It's like magic. You put your dose into a glass, fill it with water and stir, and bam, the lipids just disappear and you end up having this slightly lemon tasting, you know, watered flavor, or flavored water, I should say. No taste or texture of oil whatsoever. And then finally, for our vegan friends, we have a great option here which does not use the fish oil. Instead, it uses an algae-based omega-3, just as effective and suitable for people who are vegan or who have allergies to fish. As you can see, we've got quite a number of you know, endorsements and certifications. We've got the very prestigious Friend of the Sea, certifying that this, in fact, this fish oil is a wild caught fish oil. And the beautiful thing, after 120 days of taking this oil, 95% of people find themselves in perfect balance. You know, when we were showing you those results before of some of my patients, we've had some terrible results of the 50-year-old guy and also the 9-year-old girl. And I know by taking this oil over 120 days, if we were to test them again, 95% of the time they'd be in perfect balance. Now, why 120 days? Well, that's because that's how long it takes for your red blood cells to reset and refresh. And so we can get an accurate reading then. But the beautiful thing is most people very quickly start to get, you know, they start to feel and talk about pleasant side effects. Some people have said things to me like within the first week that they've started dreaming again, that they've started to have improved sleep, their skin has felt a little bit better, less aches and pains and things of this nature. Now, who can take it? Well, I think you should already know, like I said before, 6 months and upwards. This is one of the best products that any young child or infant or newborn could take. Definitely, excuse me, definitely an absolute essential for pregnant women, and fantastic really for everyone there. So that brings, no, it doesn't bring us to an end. We're going to go through some very quick health claims here. These are just 18 of the very many benefits that omegas can do. And in reality, you know, like I often say to people, I really do believe that omegas are the missing link to health, because they really do affect every part of your body. Brain function, heart function, immune function. They're going to help with vision, teeth, bones. A very important one here to fight oxidative stress. You know, normalize blood pressure. This is a very important one, normalize cell division, also known as apoptosis. This is basically cancer fighting, this little section here. Very important for normalizing cholesterol. As we can see here, normal development of eye of fetus and breastfed infants, etc., etc. There's really so much that omegas can do, and they're just such a very simple but very important part to your health. So that is basically it from me. I will stop my my sharing, and I'll come back to you, and I'll be very welcome at answering any questions that people have and assisting you how I can.
Thank you, Idris. It was very informative and very interesting. I'm sure many of you have learnt something new from that session, and I'm sure there's a few questions to be had. Does anybody like to ask any questions? I can see one coming up in the chat group there, asking where they can purchase the supplement. If you just go back to the person that referred you to this call, I'm sure they can help you out. Are you there, Dr. Christian?
I am, yep, just 10 seconds. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. So
the camera's not allowing me to, I can't get the camera working. Oh, there we go.
There it is, yeah. So if nobody has any questions, we have another practitioner here on the call that I thought I might get to speak a few words. And I've heard that he's been seeing some really good results in clinic. So maybe, Christian, if you'd like to just tell people a little bit about your experience using Zenzino in clinic. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Idris. I really enjoyed listening to another practitioner also speak. It's always good to hear some different takes on things and to jot down some notes myself. From a clinical perspective, very similar to what Dr. Idris has found, is testing a lot of young kids. I'm very surprised at how many kids have got such significant imbalances, particularly in cell membrane fluidity, and also in regards to their omega 6:3 ratio. And the one thing I can put it down to is obviously because of the food that kids are eating, and probably the prevalence of more convenience foods that tend to have, even whether they're plant-based or vegan foods, where they use things like canola oil, the rice bran oil, lots of things tend to be used in children's snack products, and obviously based on a lower body mass to weight compared to adults, it seems to be really skewing their blood lipid profiles in a not very good direction. Quite concerning when you're thinking that these are the future generations, and particularly the long-term effects of having insufficient amounts of omega-3s, particularly in regards to sperm and overproduction, and obviously for joint fertility, and even just sort of supporting human population. Other really interesting results that I found is people who've also had lipid with diabetes, people whether they're taking insulin or they're taking oral medications for diabetes, once again also tend to have very high cell membrane fluidity results. And we've seen great changes in people not making any dietary changes, but simply taking the balance oil and then going to their GP, having much better triglyceride levels, much better blood glucose levels. One particular person who comes to mind was taking oral diabetic medication, and their previous blood glucose reading was 8.6. The doctor sort of said anything below 7 they would be happy with. It was very much pushing for their patient to take a double dose of the medication. It was actually causing them to have a lot of nausea and unsettledness in their stomach, so they always had stuck to the single dose, but incorporating the balance oil at the appropriate appropriate dosage for their weight, within a period of 4 to 5 weeks, their blood glucose level came spot on 7, and it'll be interesting to see in a couple of months' time when we go and retest them again using the balance test to see where their cell membrane fluidity is. But they also did have much better blood pressure results, much better triglyceride levels, improved blood glucose levels, and just general even reduction to aches and pains. So yeah, I've seen remarkable results. Even also coming to what you mentioned, Dr. Idris, about ADD and ADHD, I'm working with a number of kids who are on the spectrum, some highly functioning, and other kids who are very low on the spectrum in regards to speech, very poor, pretty much just making sounds or using maybe 2 or 3 words in a sentence. I met up with the mum on yesterday, Tuesday, and after 1 week of their daughter taking the balance oil, all of a sudden the mum said, I can now start to see that my child's starting to engage in a different way. She's actually starting to look at me in the eye and in the eyes, and she said, I can start to see behind that sort of fog that's been there for so many years, and as if there's an awareness, as if there's a body, as if someone's trying to get out. And you sort of, as a parent, when you hear those types of things, it just makes your heart sing to know that parents are struggling and going through these challenges, and to know that something that can be so simple, that can be reducing brain inflammation, helping to improve their cognitive functioning, and allowing them to have an improved quality of life is really life-changing. It's beautiful to see in clients, but also to see how that also takes a lot of stress off the family there too. So it's been a very unique product in the spectrum. I will also add that even women who are in perimenopause, who may be having a lot of dryness or other fertility challenges, simply taking the balance oil for a minimum, but even several months, even close to 3 months, already start to notice changes in cervical mucus in regards to spotting and those types of things. So all of a sudden people, and I'm talking about people who are in their later 40s, not necessarily people in the early 40s, and within a period of realistically 90 days already start to see changes. So obviously if they've been in the state for a number of years, it'll be interesting to see how much further things progress. But once again, it'll be very interesting to go and check their the balance test results, because once again, they also had a really high, from memory, I think their Amiga 6:3 ratio was 24.3 to 1. So they had a very high a high fire to water ratio, which I love that analogy. It's a really good one. And their cell membrane fluidity, once again, was quite high. It wasn't the highest, but from memory, it was something around 17 to 1. So quite a lot of markers were up there on the higher end. And so just to be able to retest them again and see how we go will be fantastic.
Dr. Christian,
Thank you.
on someone's just asked a question regarding testing, because it's something which I guess people might think of, is they've said, do I test myself first? Is it recommended to take Amiga on a daily basis, or to firstly test levels and take it until levels have increased and stop? And it's a good point, but I think one of the highlights I wanted to mention, or I did mention during the talk, was that you can't make Omega-3. The body doesn't make it, and it's so fundamental to so many functions, like we've talked about. So testing is kind of like, it sets the stage of where you're at, and if you don't know where you're at, you don't know where you can head to. So it's a great tool, but it isn't necessary. It's just a tool. So more important would be to just start taking the oil itself, because we know that you don't produce it. But like I said, if I think testing is a great tool, because it's going to show where you are, and then eventually we can show you, where you're headed in 20 days.
And I'd concur with that. And this is the part that when it comes to testing, so many people are used to going to a GP and having bloods done, checking their vitamin D levels, checking their iron levels, checking their vitamin B status, checking their thyroid hormone, checking their cholesterol. So that type of testing is very routine. And probably to give a bit of understanding, when we're talking about testing people, it's not something where you're drawing out vials and vials and vials of blood. The test kit itself is a very small one. It comes with a couple of little lancets. You just apply some alcohol to your finger prick test, same as a glucose test, and just put several drops of blood on a little cardboard swatch, and that gets sent off, as Dr. Idris said, to Norway to get analysed. And it does. But from a test perspective, it's really clear for people to see the results. And it does. It gives people a starting point to know where they were and how far they've come. Because sometimes otherwise it becomes very anecdotal. I've taken something and I've observed a result. But when you've actually got that definitive starting and end point, or even midpoint and then end point, it actually gives you a really clear clinical evaluation of seeing how far a person's progressed, but also for them to recognise, wow, I may not necessarily, because a lot of people have got such long-term underlying levels of inflammation. It can take a period of time for that to manifest, particularly if they've got achy joints. Sometimes you get people who have really quick turnarounds in that. Sometimes people notice slower results, but when they've also got that clinical evidence there, it also helps to put their mind at ease that they're actually moving in the right direction, particularly when you've got cell membrane fluidity. And then if it is backed up with some other information that might come from a GP, it also works really well too.
Thank you. Thanks so much, comments. And yeah, I think establishing the baseline is so important. I'll tell you a little bit about when I was first approached by Zenzino. One of the stipulations that I put on the table was that I wanted to go and test a select group of people. to demonstrate that this was something that would be a high demand with high effectiveness in this market. And I selected people like naturopaths and nutritionists and coaches and trainers. These are people that I know are already supplementing, already very, very careful with what they put into their bodies. People that I would regard as a good picture of health, and none of them tested in balance, which was very, very interesting to me and them. And we put them on the program for the 120-day period. And all of them tested back in balance after that 120 days. So for me, that really demonstrated such a strong point of difference, because these people are already taking supplements and already focused on what they're putting into their body. So yeah, I think Zenzino's formulation is a really powerful thing. It's been developed by way of actually testing thousands of people. And I think that is really important, because what I've noticed is that a lot of supplement companies will take individual ingredients that have a track record and they put them all together, assuming that that's going to be a very good formulation for everybody. But none of it's proven. And I really like that Zenzino actually went out and tested a lot of people to establish what the deficiencies are. And then in their formulation process, they tested the formulation and continue to test people to get that formulation just right. As I haven't seen another company go to such lengths, and I think that's why it is so effective. So I thank you, everybody, for joining the call, and I hope you've found it informative. And I highly recommend that you get yourself tested and those that you care about. And as these guys have demonstrated, there's another couple of important parts of our evolution is sort of relying on this as a building block, not just fertility and the whole conception, but also kids. And I got to say that there's been incredible results with kids, and that is our future, and it's something that's so important. And I think just having people just tend to have a bit more emotional motivation around their children. And hopefully this is going to spark you into getting your kids tested and getting them back in balance, so that they can have better outcomes. So I think I'll wind it up now, and thanks so much, Idris, again for taking the time to do this call, and Christian for jumping on and adding in. And I hope that we could continue to do this on a weekly basis. Would be great, just to help educate people, and hopefully we can make a bigger difference. So thank you, everyone.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Adam.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.